welcome to a brand new MSFPV stream. We are proud to present a very special one today, what we're titling The Big Reveal. And so I'm here with myself, Reaper, and my co-host, Nor the Goblin. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, sir. How are you? Good to see you again.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited about this show. We've got a lot to talk about, and you want to tell the viewers a little bit about what's happening today?
Me too. It's been a few weeks since we've last done a show. My fault entirely. I've been a bit busy with real life, so yeah. We're not stopping the roundtables that we've been doing at all. Those are still going to be a thing that we're going to hopefully do in the future. But we've been given an opportunity with the with the Marvel Strike Force Council, Players Council, and they're going to be coming on the show. We're going to be revealing certain members every episode, not all of them at once, and just getting to chat with them, getting to know them, asking them questions that you guys have been putting in the MSFPV Discord. And we just get to learn more and more about how the council operates and just, peek behind the curtain and see how things really are done.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be really exciting, and we got a lot of great people on the call here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go to Evdog and Beta Ray, and I guys hope you enjoyed the show. Gladly here to welcome Evdog and Beta Ray Bill to the show, and today is a really big day for you, Evdog and Beta. There's a big reveal going on today, as we just talked about in the intro, and why are we here today?
All right. Well, first, let me start with hello, everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of streams where we aim to keep our community in the loop about what's happening with the council. We're excited to introduce to you today the council members you voted on, but have never had a chance to meet. Up until now, we've kept their identities secret, and that's for a few reasons. Our number one reason is prevent harassment. It's an unfortunate reality that we might face criticism and blame for actions we take. Dealing with constant negativity, hate, and even doxing can really take a toll on someone's mental health. Our second reason is to avoid alliance pressures. Players naturally turn to what they perceive as a source of advanced or insider information. They often lean on us for problem solving or to push their personal alliance or cluster objectives. And that's the second reason. The third reason is community focus. We receive numerous requests, and many players see their personal issues as community issues. As a group, we try to distinguish between the two, and we don't want each member to be pressured to handle these personal player issues on their own. And so the next question I would assume is, why are we breaking our silence now? So Sevi, Bill, and I stepped up to be the public faces of the council in the beginning. We didn't do it for glory or some sense of power. We simply thought we could handle the pressure the best. However, that decision has created the misconception that only 3 people run the council and direct it. That couldn't be farther from the truth. In reality, the council is made up of some of the smartest and most level-headed players I've ever worked with. They passionately represent the community segments while remaining open to the other segments' needs. It's time to introduce the dynamic members you elected. Some will remain anonymous, but a few have decided to move into the light. By doing this, we hope to achieve a few things. We hope to show you the diversity of the council. We want to demonstrate that the council represents more than just one faction of the player base. We also want to clarify the council's roles. We'll explain later on what the council can and cannot do publicly. Also, we want to be transparent. We want to share how the council operates, discuss its involvement and its successes. And we also, and most importantly, want to get rid of all the false information out there. Our goal is to share information without spin, view, clicks, or drama, just the facts. So we hope you enjoyed this stream and the ones to come. They won't be like most MSF streams. Instead, we'll focus on education and information and hope that we can bring you guys more in line with what's actually happening. Expect some interesting topics, expect some sneak peeks of what's on the horizon. And without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to the three council members that have decided to come forward today. Others will come forward in the future, but these three we're planning to show today. Hand the floor over.
All right. Well, it's time to meet some of our council members. The three that are coming forward today are Shuski, Free to Play J, and Mr. Minnow. Welcome, folks. We'll start with you, Shuski. Tell us a bit about yourself. How you are as a player. What's your experience in the game? What's your spending like? What do you do levels wise in raiding, in war, arena, Crucible Council? Let's hear. What are your current goals and aims?
Uh, it's very nice to be on. Very nice to talk with you guys and get to know you. Yeah, my name is Shusky. I am with Anomaly Detected. Um, you may know me from the MSF Civil War server. On there a lot. So spoiler alert, my favorite mode is War. I have been playing for a few months after. It's over 1900 days. I don't remember how exactly it is, but it's a few months after launch. Some old friends mentioned it, and I've been sucked in since. I am a light spender, and so that's sort of my role, my representation here with the council. Um, Anomaly is usually somewhere in top 25 of things, depending on the weeks, as far as raid or war payouts. We've historically been a little more war focused, trying to do more on raiding, especially. Um, my big concerns are sort of why I wanted to be on the council. I was extraordinarily frustrated just to see how many times Scopely would seem to shoot themselves in the foot. There's a great bones. That's an expression. It used to be of a house. A house is good bones. Like, it doesn't really matter. You can work with good bones. Um, if the facade needs work or something like that. And I think MSF is that, and it's just extraordinarily frustrating. And I definitely wanted to try to just advocate and just point out things to them that, because it seems like from my perspective they just put things out there and there's no analysis. And like, let's see if they'll spend $100 on 13 million gold. Uh, no, no. Hopefully, no one is doing that. But hopefully, by having some more visibility to what the values that you're looking for, if you are going to spend a little money, um, and just really trying to say, hey, I'm trying to keep up with some of the big boys without breaking the bank. How is this possible? Is your game allowing me to do that? So I was incredibly surprised to be elected and happy to be a part of the team.
So, where would you say on the spending brackets between the free to play and the Krakens, where would you say you put yourself, or where do you consider yourself to be? Moderate, dolphin, or
Fairly, I think we call it light spender. What that equates to is maybe 50, maybe $75 or so a month. Um, there are some months where I don't like any of the pass people and I'm good on cores, so I skip everything. But I'm a big pass person, like the strike pass. I rarely buy characters. If I do, it's usually the smallest pack to unlock them, and that's about that. Um, I I love trying to play the game where I can decide when I don't need to go crazy and purchase a character, um, and or build a character. I'm very proud that I have a power like 100 Spider-Man Noir, because I could tell he was hot garbage from day one. And um, I love trying to outsmart Scopely in that regard. It's that gives me some enjoyment too.
so you're like a mid-tier spending rep then?
I can't remember what exactly I'd have to look it up, but yeah, that's about what the perspective I'm bringing to the table.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Uh,
let's go to move on to free to play Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate being here. I've been playing for 5.5 years. I just logged that in the other day. I'm obviously the free to play rep. My favorite game mode is actually War, um, even though I don't have all the War teams built. Uh, my level of play, been rating about 1.4 right now. I'd like to get up to 1.5. We're a top 400, sometimes dip into the 300 group in raids and war, but kind of depends on the season and the events and, how hard people are going that season. Um, my concerns, why I wanted to do this is, I wanted to see that, that the free to play players can play with the spenders. I agree that the spender should get an advantage, but we're still an important part of this game, and I want to make sure that Scopely sees that.
all right. Well, finally, we also have Mr. Minnow. And welcome, sir. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Godlin, if you will, and Reaper for hosting us on our call today. Dusky and Jay, I appreciate everybody's perspective, and I'm just happy to be here. I've been in the game here for almost 1,850 days. I actually just checked it while we're on the call here. Um, as you can imagine, I am in the lower, spending level, trying to find the most value that you can out of everything. I think a lot of people think about value when it comes to spending in this game. It's just a different perspectives. For me, that when I choose to click that button, it's like, how is this going to save me the most amount of time to a certain extent, or is this going to like make a difference in my roster right now versus just buying the newest character because they're probably going to need it down the road. Um, and so as far as what I like to play, I feel like on its, I think for what it is, I love Cosmic Crucible. I think it could be more. I think at this point, a lot of the rewards have starting to kind of all gotten me over up to 7 stars. But I like the idea of Cosmic Crucible. I think it has the most. A lot. I think it has a. What's the word I'm thinking of? It has a lot of potential, right? And with Tower to a certain extent, Tower's a lot of. I think it has a lot of potential. I think it just needs some tweaking there to be really a really top tier. So, um, for me, I am a leader of an alliance within a pretty large cluster. We do top 50 in raids and in war most seasons. I've vastly maybe in top 100 if a lot of the issues we have are like other people have. Sometimes you lose folks for various reasons, and you have to kind of scramble to pick up the pace and you drop down. And that was a part of the reason why I got on the council. It's not so much for the game, the inner workings of the game. It's more of like the organization part of it. And I understand how people work, and communication is such a big part of this game. And for me, it's just wanted to make sure that I am able to communicate the ideas that people in my group, and for players overall, what they're experiencing in game, and try to help scope what we're trying to accomplish and how we can make it better for everyone.
Now,
So yeah,
you
I appreciate
alluded
it.
to a bit earlier about your spending levels, and your name is kind of maybe not as on the nose as free to play Jays, but it's a good hint towards your spending type. But what would you say is your average spend and bracket that you represent?
It kind of vacillates. It's mostly it could be $5 to $10 a month. I've actually only bought one new character pass in whatever how many years it is on that release. I think it's probably similar to Shushki, maybe a little bit less. Every once in a while I'll do a path, but for me it's kind of like that $5 here and there, $2, whatever. So it's um, I understand the mechanics of what they're trying to accomplish for spenders in general. I know that I don't necessarily need to go there. I'm happy with kind of the lane that I'm in, that I've chosen in.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so now we're going to go into the actual details of the council and talking about various points and purposes and execution. So we're going to start with Shuski, who's going to talk to us about the gaming community overall and the benefits and bonuses of having a healthy gaming community. Shuski, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, the purpose of this is just to sort of define what our overall goals are. These are some high level uh, mindsets. These are high level ideals that we hold to as a group. And we felt it would be really helpful just to spell these out just so everyone knows where we are coming from. As a group, we are very cognizant that a healthy gaming community does include all levels of gameplay, all levels of spend. It is a matter where you can't really have one without the other. If you cut out a portion of the gaming community, there are going to be severe negative ramifications for all the other portions of the community. And so we are trying to keep all those perspectives in mind, which is part of the reason you see a diverse number of folks from different backgrounds here on the council. One of the things too that we also are trying to recognize, where I'm coming from a more late game sort of perspective, but players are progressing at their own pace. They're going to not be. Some people might want to rush into the raids as quick as you can, and some people might say, "Oh, I'm going to stay at Doom. I'm okay with that type of thing," and some people might still just be going along at Ultimus and log in once a week, and that's okay. They're all part of this community, and the refreshing thing I would say is we get to hear from those different perspectives to help sort of challenge our own innate biases and trying to make sure that we are keeping in mind that people are consuming this game in the manner that suits them best. Other sort of ideal is we absolutely recognize that progression is one of the key factors of this game. It is a hero collector type of game. There's lots of them out there, and you would have not a whole lot of motivation if all of a sudden you log in and all your characters are maxed out and unlocked. The chase is part of the fun. The chase is some of what we look for, so we recognize that there's always going to be some level of chase to the game. And that leads an extra bit. Okay, well, how do I chase? You chase because you need to invest time, you need to invest money, or some sort of combination of both things. I know it was said before too, but we do recognize that if folks are investing money in the game, they're really trying to help get a little shortcut. They want to get a return on that. We might use the term investment sometimes. We know it's not an investment, it's the game. But when you do want to spend money to support this company, you are expecting something in return. And if that's out of whack, I'll just pick on the $100 for 13 million offer that they like to have. If the ask for how much is being spent does not meet what you're coming back to, that's a dangerous thing, and that's something that expected. And so finally, it's you also are hoping that a healthy game would have that balance in mind. Again, using that $100 for 13 million gold offer. If it was $100 for 130 million gold, or $100 for 1.3 billion gold, or something, these sort of deals could break the economy. And there is an economy to the game. There's a lot of moving parts. We know there's so many currencies in there, and you really can't break it. We don't want to see it broken because, again, it's all going to cause. We've seen it time and time again. When something is broken, that's when people start leaving. When they start feeling devalued, when they start getting upset about a direction, that's when friends leave. And that's one thing we don't want to see happen if we can avoid. And so we have a sort of little visual here that explains what we're trying to do. And this is what we try to advocate every time we meet with Scopely. We know there's a balance of time and money. That's why we have our little icons in the middle there. And on our end, we have all the different player buckets that we represent. And those are all those interests. And they're just, some interests are fairly aligned, some are different for sure. But it does feel a bit of a tightrope act. And I think that's why it's important we have these different viewpoints, because we're able to advocate for players like us in the situations we're in most effectively. And then hopefully there are other folks on the council who can also advocate for their position to really try to give a unified vision to Scopely about whatever the concern is that we're bringing up to them. So it's a fun tightrope, but it is definitely a tightrope act that we're walking through.
All right, and so for
I
the next
appreciate that
slide, I mean,
overview,
we've got,
Shusky,
you
and
know, a lot of questions around the Players Council and what they do and don't do. And luckily, Free to Play Jay from the council is going to kind of go over that. Free to Play Jay.
Yeah, thanks again for having me here. You know, the council does a lot, and you know, there's stuff we can't do as well. But I think the thing is, you know, when you start out, you think, oh, cool, I'm on a council about a video game, and you think it's all just fun and games. But you know, there's really a lot of work and things that go on behind the scenes. Um, we meet with Scopely and go over current in-game issues that, in fact, affect the entire community. We discuss new ideas and features, long term issues concerning things like economy. We're talking about training mats, gold, uh, anything you can think of. We're talking about progression, whether it's new players or you know the top dogs out there. We're covering it all. We participate in calls as well as do research. We a big part of what we have to do is just get along and kind of formulate, you know, one view of the council. You know, Scopely will say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And you know, Shusky will have one point of view, and I'll have another, and Beta will chime in there, and you know, then we all got to kind of say, hey, what's best for everyone, and how's the council going to make this, you know, the best possible outcome. So we try and take into account, you know, all viewpoints and experience, but you know, we also got to balance. It's tough because at the same time, Scopely's a business, and they got to make money, and we want them to make money, so we can keep playing this game we're also passionate about. But you know, we don't want them to make too much money, so we don't exactly want them to hear all that. But uh, we talk about issues that affect the entire community. The council's been involved in some prompt and resolutions and some compensations. You know, the biggest one recently was here with the event currency versus the event points. I think with the ebony treats or whatever they were called, we quickly brought to their attention that their wording wasn't so great, and they listened. Um, you know, there was also the removal of event charts, and we all saw quickly how quickly that got changed. Um, but generally, our meetings can take, you know, up to an hour or an hour and a half, and then they go well outside of that. We you know, we're chatting all day, chatting all night, whether it's Discord or you know calls, and you know we're all coming up with viewpoints, and sometimes it's the next day, and I wake up and someone's got a whole thing typed out, and you know you got to read it, take it to heart, where they're coming from, because you know they're just as passionate about you as you are. Um, what we aren't as a council is we're not an extension of their support team, so we don't really focus on individual player issues. We're trying to get past that. We're not looking at the single stages. We're trying to view everything as a big picture. and move that way. Scopely, we're also not Scopely, so we do not decide what they do or what they don't do. All we can do is simply make recommendations, and they can listen to them or they don't have to. But we try as best as we can to make our concerns known, or any impact that might help make a change that we think will be better or might hurt. We try to make that known.
Yeah.
So you guys are having up to an hour and a half a week with, high up guys in Scopely every week.
Yeah, generally it'll last about an hour, but sometimes it bleeds over to an hour and a half. It just kind of depends on the content, and sometimes there's more exciting things or new things that we're going over, and sometimes it's just more of a general, hey, how's the economy going? How do we feel generally about the game? It just kind of depends on currently what's going on and how the general feel is.
And you mentioned you guys are always pinging each other back and forth in Discord groups. Do you have any communication with Scopely in those groups, or like communication outside of the meetings?
Oh, absolutely. We're in contact with them 100%. After hours, weekends, we've got certain people that we can contact, and definitely are never out of touch with.
And just lastly, and on a personal note, when you say you've gone to bed and then you wake up and you've seen like a whole, like, long form answer and reply, is that just Dog, or are there other people that also type at great length?
Oh, well, Dog is still typing, first of all. But no, there is. It doesn't matter whether it's the free to play reps or the whales, the minnows. I mean, everyone has their points of view. I've never been so refreshed to just be with so many different minds that are just so open to, you know, just for example, the other day, like the strike pass, it was awful for the free to play track, and I logged in, and I think it was mostly about the G18 orbs, and I logged before I could even log in, giving it to Scopely, telling them like, there's got to be a ratio there that you can't just leave free to play out to dry, and it was before I even logged in. So I mean, these guys are looking out after everyone just the way I'm trying to look out after the spenders.
We
All right,
appreciate
thank you
that
very much,
overview
Free to
too.
Play
And
Jay, talking us to us there about what the council doesn't do, and he gave us some insights into how the council operates, which leads us into our next segment quite conveniently, which is going to be done by Mr. Minnow, who's going to tell us more about the details of how this council works. Mr. Minnow, floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Goblin and Mr. Reaper, for hosting us today. This has been great, and so about how the council operates. Well, I think we're all actually trying to figure that out as we go along. We were not given the Dungeon Master's Guide, if you will, to councils when we all first joined in and started working on this. So it's been a real work in progress, but frankly, it's been pretty amazing to be kind of thrown into a group of random folks who really are only have in common. All we have in common is that we play this mobile game that we all love, and it's I feel pretty lucky that the way that way the council was selected, I think was very upfront and very what's the word, very deliberate, and very out in the open. The way that they decided to do that was, the folks who started the movement thought it would be best to kind of have some representation for the different spending levels, because in a lot of ways that's how folks have different wants and needs based on the way that they interact with the game monetarily, in terms of what, how, you may have, resource management issues, or just, you want to progress, faster, more, better, faster. And so, we separated ourselves into, the buckets, kind of the free to play, the very, very light spenders as myself, Mr. Minnow,
kind of your mid-level spenders, and then, in the Whales, Kraken, Leviathan, whatever, Cthulhu, whatever you want to call it. And so how we got there was they created an application, if you will, that kind of where you can talk about where you are in the game. If you're a leader, if what the issues you are, what your favorite game modes, and then they were selected, kind of culled to a certain extent by the folks that run the movement, but then it was all anonymous to where they didn't know who actually submitted it, right? So I've never met any of these folks before, and so in essence, when it was each bucket, spending bucket, if you will, was given, I think, five final contestants, and then the entirety of the Discord voted on those, and the top two were added to the council. One prime, and then one backup. And so usually each week we meet with Scopely that has a lot of times they have something to preview, or there are issues that we want to talk about in game, the things, kind of stuff that we've talked about previously, and I think Bill's going to kind of get into some of the things that we have been discussing and worked on over the past couple months here coming up after me. But so we come prepared, they come prepared, and we give our opinion. We come back, we take notes, we present like a white paper, if you will, afterwards to how we feel like this was represented each day, or each week, I should say. And then it just kind of goes from there. It's a very iterative process. We have an open line on a Discord that we can all interact with them outside of these kind of weekly meetings. And so at the end of the day, we all have to work together to come up with a plan, an idea, a suggestion about what the council represents based on all of our different spending levels, in essence, and what represents the community as a whole the best. And it's a difficult thing because it's hard. You can't please everybody all the time, right? You hope you are doing what's best for the community long term. And I think Scopely recognizes that. They appreciate that we're not just there, pounding on the table like a baby, saying, "Hey, we need this immediately now. We don't care. It's a must-have item." It's all very, I think, very meted, very mature, very. I think to me, it's a nice conversation to have every week. We all look forward to it, and I think they look forward to it now. Like they've got their leadership is behind this council, because I feel like we've been lucky enough to have a group of folks who are, I think, understanding and have an idea of how we can better change this game for the better. And so now we're included on their kind of thinking process as they introduce things to the game, and also how things that they may need an immediate action on. So, for example, some of the compensation things. How do we do something? How do we fix something in the immediate term, right? And so, but at the end of the day, they still have to make their own decisions. We do not have, any power per se. We just have the power of suggestion. And I think that power of suggestion is, I feel like it's getting stronger, it's getting better, and hopefully, we can continue to do that in the long term.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minot, for that overview of how the council operates. And we're going to switch over to Beta Ray Bill. He's going to talk about some of the examples of how the council has been impactful. Mr. Beta, please.
Thank you, Reaper. And I'd just like to start off with also my comments that it's been a real pleasure and honor to work with the rest of the council. It's helped give, I think, a number of us a lot of different perspectives that maybe we hadn't considered, and could sort of help shape our own views of how we can deal with things from a more holistic view for the community. So I get the honor today of talking a bit about what have we done so far since the council operated. And so I'm going to go through, sort of broke these down into some highlighted areas. We'll start out with on terms of communications and the engagement with the community. We know that this has been a longstanding issue for the Scopely team, and still it's not perfect. They definitely have some ways to go on it, but we have been working with them and helping them to shape more poignant communication, more up-to-date information, and try to get that out as quickly as possible, sharing as much information as they can about things like issues and bugs, and better patch notes, things of that nature. But the really cool thing is that through this process, we've essentially become a lot more intimately involved with them when there are issues, because there always will be, but making sure that they're rapidly getting communications out about it, and that they're also addressing compensation in a fair and appropriate manner. And they really have come to the table on that. Hopefully everybody's noticed over the past couple of months that things have been much more equitable in terms of their compensation out to the community. And then, of course, we've done things like advocating for making sure things are left in communications that are out there. The big removal of event charts. They were trying to simplify the blog, which actually made sense from a complex standpoint. But the reality is everybody loves the charts, and that's a lot of detailed information that people want. So we made sure to help advocate that along with the envoys as well. Some other key areas in terms of things like the MarvelStrikeForce.com website and things that Toxie and TyJ, who many people know in the community, have done. They're an awesome team, and they've been doing some really cool stuff out there. We did release some information, I think it was about a week or two ago, about things coming in the area of helping Alliance leadership with recruiting support. There's some really cool tools coming in that area. A lot of the input that they got in how to shape that came from surveys that were run actually through the Players Voice movement way back in July. So it's really important. I encourage people to continue to join the server and participate in the polls and suggestions process that we have out there. But also the council had opportunity to meet with them separately and discuss some potential ideas and things that they were looking for some guidance on in terms of how we could help alliances in managing raids better and wars and rosters and all sorts of cool stuff. So we don't have anything concrete to talk about there yet, but they were incredibly open to it, and I look forward to some of the really cool things that they've got in the works developing there. A lot of our focus area, I think Ev talked about it earlier, was around economy and experience and events. And so in terms of the economy, it is a very complex long-term set of conversations because there is so many different touch points. You know, when you talk about gold, it touches lots of areas in the economy. And you have to be very careful how we pivot on certain things because you can increase in one area and cause a problem in another area. So we have been having ongoing conversations with them, but since the start of things here, we've seen several areas where gold has been injected. We've even seen areas like in war season rewards where not only was it injected there, but it's actually been doubled recently as well. So it's ongoing conversations that we have. We know it's not in the state that it needs to be because we're dealing with, you know, an ever scaling progression system here. And you know, given that gold touches so many areas, it's definitely not in the state that we'd like to see it yet. But they've been very open in talking about it. We've also been able to influence having Blue ISO 4 and 5 put back out into battle passes, and so that was a really cool win that we were really excited about. Along with access to more teal gear, I hope people have noticed that it's become a lot more farmable lately between campaigns and the battle passes. And also during events, especially in September, there was quite a bit more Gear 18 gear available, or Gear 17 and 18 gear available. In terms of the Red Star economy, this is something that we actually discussed with them fairly early on, that it's been around for a long time and that it was sort of time to look at how do we flatten it out? How do we open it up and make it more available to players? And they listened. They actually came up with a really cool two-tier approach where almost immediately after we had our initial conversations, they opened it up to more of the pay-to-play players, which was more aggressive offers, meaning a lot more of them, more rewards and events, and then also quite a bit of price reductions. I know a lot of people were very aware of this going on, and they actually sort of exceeded what we were expecting them to do on that front. But the second phase of this really, which was sort of the more important part of it too, is if you're going to open it up, you have to open it up a lot more for the free-to-play community as well. And so having the incursion campaigns really brings farmability for the first time ever in this game to Red Stars. And so we were really excited to see that. And I've heard lots of commentary from people that are like, I'm replete with Red Stars now. You know, this is really great. So they're providing some significant catch-up mechanics for a broad set of the player base. We've had lots of conversations with them about characters and farmability. We did get an initial commitment way back when with the Players Voice movement before the council was in place to improve the character release cadence. And they have limited the number of new characters released each month. have to be careful always. I always tell people when you look at a patch coming up and it might list 5 characters, the patch is not typically in a single month. So they have actually reduced it down to about, I think it's typically about 3 characters a month now. But they have made some concessions on the farmability of characters when they become available and how long it takes you to farm them. It's not where we'd like to see it yet. There should be some cool information coming out soon that will help accelerate this that we look forward to talking about. But for now, they have made some progress on that front. We've also been involved with them in looking at character reworks and viability. This was a commitment that they had way back in the beginning as well, is to not always constantly bringing out new characters, but also helping to look at our existing rosters and where they can expand or update certain characters to become usable again. So obviously recently we've had Black Order reworked. You've got all 5 characters got a rework, and in fact you can leverage Thanos now without needing all 5. You could literally use him with Hull and Thanos and 3 other characters and still get some value out of it. And then we've had 2 new teams, New Avengers and Pegasus, which both included 2 reworked characters as part of that process as well. And the Pegasus one, I think for us, was a really cool one because while it is an older character with rescue that a lot of people haven't used since way back in the Power Armor days, most people really have a maxed out Kestrel in their pursuit for APOC. And so to be able to continue to leverage Kestrel, she's a really, really great character right now. And so that was a really cool thing. And then also we've had the opportunity to participate in testing of these characters and to give some feedback and how they can be better utilized, not necessarily just in a single mode that they might be targeted for, but across the game if there's opportunity to leverage them better. In terms of events, I know a lot of people ask this question. Did we have influence on the way events are right now? You know, Scopely, we've talked about it already in this conversation today. They are their own company and they make their own decisions. The best that we can do is advise them. I can't say that most of us feel like events are in a good state. They are what they are right now, and we hope to continue to have more conversations with them about where they go. But they have listened to us on many aspects of it. For example, there was a period of time where, for whatever reason, the timing of the ending of events was not coordinating with the end of season. So when alliances need to swap players out, it was causing a lot of consternation about, you know, people having to stay an extra day or 2 before they could move alliances, and it was just not a workable situation. So they did listen to us and make those changes, and so that was a good victory for the community. Similarly, sometimes events run and then you have an event currency in a store along with it, and they would make that disappear as soon as the event ended, and that really wasn't good because it put an unnecessary time crunch on people to try to spend that currency. So we've gotten them to extend that where you do get additional time available for that store and can make more rational decisions about what you want to use your currency for. We have pushed and they have brought out the scourges on a more regular frequency now. I know they've intimated that there's some change in the reward structure coming. We don't know what that looks like. But for now, they have agreed and keep bringing the scourges out on a more regular basis so additional players can continue to unlock the characters that they need to from that process. Initially, we received agreement to remove the orb hoarding events because that was just causing a lot of consternation in the community. Unfortunately, I don't think they've quite replaced some of the things that you could earn through some of that or through some of the massive number of monthly leaderboard events that we used to have. So we're looking forward to some conversations and continued dialogue with them about how these things get shaped in the future. But we did need to remove some of the pain that was happening. And unfortunately, part of that is we don't have all the resources that you could get through that process before in place. But that's a little bit of the be careful what you ask for kind of a thing, right? So there's that goes back to my comment about the economy, that if you pivot too much on one thing, you might cause a downstream issue on something else. So we've learned a lot through this process with them and are hoping to get better with them on that as well. In terms of specific game modes, a couple of areas to talk about is Alliance Wars. Everybody, I think, universally agrees they were pretty excited when all the energy for wars came up front in a war. It took a lot of the burden away from having to have leadership there for the entire war. And there was a time where they were reevaluating that, and it was actually driven by events. It was an issue where some event, I don't remember which one, but it was requiring credit for the war hits, and some alliances were having people that weren't getting enough hits in to get credit for that. And so we advised them that it's better to fix the event than it is to change war to accommodate for that. And so they listened, and they've kept the war energy situation. And I don't see that changing anytime in the foreseeable future. So that was a really good win. And then correcting some things that were pushed out in error or incorrectly applied, like the barracks situation. When they presented to us the most recent changes about wars, it was supposed to be that barracks was going to be an adjacent room only. Somehow, when it went live, it was a global buff room again, and so we quickly moved to getting them to apply the right buffs to that room. In terms of Cosmic Crucible, we pushed really hard in the beginning, and it's a continued process, but bringing more player agency, because as most people know, a couple seasons ago, everything was very cookie cutter. People were like, oh, look, another Wakanda in room, whatever. And so it was nice to be able to get them to open that up. And I think we'll be seeing more of that coming in the future here. So I look forward to the changes that this continues to evolve with. And we've also been able to give them suggestions on ideas for specific room buffs. And I will freely admit it was my mistake, and along with a couple others, not part of the council, that we thought it was a cool idea to do a raid buff room only. And that was a suggestion prior to Bifrost coming out. So I think had we known that, we probably would have pivoted a little bit differently in the suggestion on that. But the idea, I think, is still pretty solid about it in terms of leveraging teams that are designed for another mode and being able to get those mode benefits within Crucible. We just need to know better about some of the side effects, like having safeguard and immunity applied upon spawn, or dealing like some of those challenges that Bifrost brought here. And then the last thing is just we've had a lot of opportunity to preview new things with them, recommendations as part of their own planning process. So we've become a lot more integrated through that. And we've had the opportunity to even do some play testing on some of these new ideas. One in particular, which was talked about briefly in the most recent patch notes, dealing with the Sword satellite coming. There'll be a lot more details about that next week. We fought very hard on that one to make sure that no gating was applied to that, or limited gating applied to that, so that, let the difficulty speak for itself. And so they listened on that front. And there are some more cool things that we'll be able to talk on next week's segment about that are coming as well. So that's kind of a quick look at the last few months of what the council's been able to accomplish with Scopely's help.
Beta, thank you again for that overview. We're going to pass it off to Evdog here. He's going to talk a little bit about the road ahead.
Okay, so once again, I'm back. And so what's next? This came up in our poll as the thing you guys wanted to hear the most. So first off, our top issues, we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep pushing for the community. We're going to keep pushing for the game to be better. That was our goal, and that's what we're going to continue to do. In terms of what our priorities are, our top issues for the game are the economy and, dealing with some of the bottlenecks and things that you guys have been talking about, the progression systems, the events, and also very important, new player experience. Those are our top goals right now. We'll continue to push the envelope on those matters, and we'll report back any progress. But we want to add that we're still held back by Scopely's roadmaps, timelines. We still have to work within those parameters. And the reason why I'm saying this is just we need to continue to be patient in terms of what we see. Everything is not done in a day. Every single, as you've heard throughout our stream here, there's a process for every single thing we do. Every single thing that comes across our desk, we have to discuss it between us, make sure that we come with a competent plan that doesn't leave anybody out, and then we got to give it to Scopely, and then they have to go through their process. And that's even the smallest thing. So hopefully you guys stay in line with us as we continue that process and we move forward. Have we solved everything? Not by a long shot, but I don't know if everybody remembers what it was like this time last year when we didn't even have a medium to talk to. We had our friends leaving pretty much every day. Community sentiment was as low as I've ever seen it, and Scopely wasn't listening. Right now, they are listening. Things are getting better. Regardless, I mean, I know there's some in the community that think that things are worse, but I would beg to disagree with that. Does the game still need upgrades, reworks, stuff like that? Yeah, definitely. And we're pushing for that. I think you guys will see we have some really, really interesting things coming down the line in terms of farmability and things like that that we've been working on. We're not at liberty to say yet, but if you guys continue to tune in, we'll be able to fill you in more on the progress and process of how those things came about. Are mistakes still happening? Absolutely. But I've been in this game for 5 years and mistakes have always been happening. The way we've addressed that is the communication. I think that everyone has seen that the communication has gotten better and the compensations have gotten more sincere. So on a final note, I just want to say I hope that we successfully put out there exactly what we do and how we do it and how dedicated we are to doing it. I hope that we distilled some of those ideas that we're not doing anything or that we're working for Scopely or that we're working for one part of the community. I hope that you guys continue to support us. And now we can move into the questions that you guys want to ask.
All right. Well, first off, I just want to thank you, Evdog, and Beda for being here tonight. But I'm going to pose these questions to our newly announced members of the council. These are questions that have been asked on the MSFPV Discord. Again, if you're not on it, you should join. And they were voted for by members of the community and the things they wanted to hear. And we picked as many of the top ones as we could. Some of them we didn't pick because we're going to use them in future shows, and some of them we didn't pick because the answers are going to become released to you very soon in an upcoming stream, so keep an eye out for that one. Anyway, we're going to start off with a couple of questions from AJ Noir. Firstly, I want to ask, what has been your greatest accomplishment as council members so far?
Gosh, Chusky here. This is kind of a hard one. We had a lot that we could point to. I would say though that the one nearest and dearest to my heart, and I think some of the other folks, is just what we've been able to do with Red Star economy. Just simply because that was one of the first meetings we had with Scopely. So we've that was the start, and sort of to see where it is from that point to now. It's in a different place, and it's a more encouraging place. So that's where I think we'd go there.
It kind of follows into the next question of have any of the events or modes you've given feedback on made it into the game? And if so, you can give an example. I mean, we've talked about incursion, but is there anything else?
Not yet, but there will be very soon. Shortly after we had that sort of incursion talk, the Red Stars, there was another game mode that we got to do some testing on and get some feedback to. We've alluded to that tonight somewhat. That this is something we were fighting about gating and trying to make sure that the difficulty of the mode itself was the challenge, not some external forces. So stay tuned. I don't know when it's going to drop, but I know it's getting closer and closer. But the best one so far is Incursion.
All right. Question from Gideon XL, and this has probably come about from the really, really great work you guys have done at injecting more gold into the economy. But new and mid-game players now desperately need more training materials. Any thoughts or discussions on how they can be injected into the economy? Maybe the same way gold has been improved.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an ongoing challenge. What we did with gold was we started to make some spreadsheets to try to identify all the sources of gold you got in the game and try to. So that was one half of the ledger. The other half is what are you doing with that gold? If they're putting out X number of players a patch, and you get this much gold over the course of a patch, is it reasonable? And I think those are some of the things we've been trying to show to them that indicate that something is out of whack. And we chose gold as a starting point just so we didn't go in too many directions. But training materials is something we want to try to take a similar look at to try to just say, okay, well, if this is releasing more, if you don't keep up, they have a symbiotic relationship. Too much gold, you're gonna burn through all your training materials. Too much training, if you don't have enough gold, your training materials will just stockpile and go there. So we want to take a similar tack to it. The only hesitation, or I'd say we just want to make sure that we feel like gold is in a good place before we let off the gas pedal on that. And we're making arguments with that and still working that, but you can imagine there's lots of things that are moving pieces in these meetings, and there's so much that we could bring up, and we often have to restrict ourselves to stay on topic and keep things focused.
All right. Is there any way any of you can give any insight as to why events seems to have more whale stones recently? You know, a lot of these events a few months ago you could free to play complete one straight through to 20, and now the point systems are getting worse. Like right now we have the arena rank or frag payments for technical terror. Has this become a situation of be careful what you ask for? You know, is this a byproduct of, say, when they removed hoarding?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, Mr. Goblin. I mean, it's a tough balance, I think, to whatever their economy is and what we're trying to what players are trying to accomplish. I think what we're most focused on, I think, is holding them to task of what they say they are going to do. In essence, what they say is their term is the moderately engaged or the very engaged player can achieve this, say like the monthly event item within this structure. And if those are becoming more and more difficult to do, then that's where we need to really focus on. And yeah, I think the whale stones, as somebody coined, I think it's just more. I think it's more obvious, I think, than it used to be, and it's more. I don't know if the word is blatant, but I think they just make it obvious. Say, hey, we know there is with the math, there is no way that you, as a free to play or even moderate spender, you're going to get to these points. And to a certain extent, that's part of the way this game is set up, right? You spend in order to advance and spend less time, and as you spend money to gain time, a temporal advantage, right? And even the folks, the krakens, if you will, the whales on our council are not happy about this either, because it's more than that used to be. More spending they have to do used to be to go get through these events. So it's I think everybody's hitting a certain pain points, and it is frustrating. So I think it's more of we're trying to just keep on pushing them to let everybody know, let Scopely know that we need to do better, in essence.
All right. We've had a lot of people asking questions about matchmaking, whether this is Cosmic Crucible or Wars or Arena and such. Has there been any discussion about finding fairer ways for maybe pairing people so you don't end up being that guy who's going into a Cosmic Crucible bracket and you're dead rank last at the start and everybody's 5 to 10 million TCP higher than you, or Wars that seem to be just one punch up after another after another?
Right. Well, that means that means you're doing great. Actually, your reward is more work, right? For being you're being rewarded with more work. Unfortunately, that's kind of it seems like a life thing. It's like the better you are at something, the more difficult something's going to be. The ELO system is designed, I think, to get a 50-50 matchup if we're talking about war, right? And I think what they've tried to do is kind of flatten out the reward structure, so it's not such of a huge difference every season, right? Or every even war, the winning and losing part of war, as everybody knows, there's not a huge gap between those, each specific war. And now it's more about how can you push up to, get the better seasons rewards. So I know it's something they're trying to figure out, but I think, and we were talking about this earlier today in the council chat, is like it it's one of those things to where we have to be kind of careful what you ask for to a certain extent, because it may end up being worse. The solution may like some sort of externality that we're not thinking about, with Arena, it's everybody knows the slingshot is there. Everybody knows that there's a certain part of I hate the word collusion, but it's people get to a certain point in whatever their bracket is, that people talk to each other, and that is a problem. But I don't think that we can't solve that within the council. All we can just keep reminding that this is a part of the game that is an unfortunate, and nobody likes it, right? Same thing with Cosmic Crucible. Most everybody's in an alliance that has a Discord. If you're in a cluster, you also have your cluster Discord. Everybody can be in that channel and posting up your matchups and having like a community fight, really. So is that, if you're not in any of those items in those Discords, is that fair, right? I mean, having a community having community fights is not necessarily fair either, but there's only so much that Scopely can do to get past that, and there's only so much we can do, frankly. It's just something just to kind of keep on everybody's minds, right?
All right, thank you very much for that. Um, has there been any talk in your meetings or, amongst yourselves about more help with in-game alliance recruitment? I know we've talked a bit about the MSFGG website and how that's developing and how that's continuing, but what about in-game tools?
That's one of the things we're actually we recruiting is one of the things we're actually allowed to talk about. There's so many things in the council we can't talk about yet, but as far as what's going on with uh, the website versus recruiting in game, I think you're going to see that streamlining uh, in to a process where it works really well together. And I'd encourage anyone to go and look at the pictures that were definitely shared the other day at in the server if you haven't seen them already.
All right, that was a great question there from Shotgun Jones. While I've got you here, at free to play, Jay, there's been a lot of questions about free to play feeling inclusive in both the council and from Scopely. How are you finding it as a free to play player? We keep hearing that this is the council of krakens and such, and as the guy that's the absolute antithesis of that, how are you finding it as your experience, and your voice being heard and other people's concerns about the section that you were elected to represent?
You know, it's definitely we all sit at this table and we all hold a seat, and that seat holds the same value, whether or not you spend money or not. And I think, the free to play players need the spenders, and the spenders need the free to play players. It's a cohesive thing. And Scopely understands that. I think there's some negative views out there that, Scopely only cares about the paying players. But we've had several talks about, why they care about the free to play players, and, you know, how that helps the whole economy. Um, but as far as being the free to play rep and I had to change what I was looking at a little bit myself and open up myself a little bit. I wasn't used to looking at offers and values and monetary values of different things in the game and comparing that to what it's actually worth in the game. And now that's just a part of something I have to evaluate. But that's something I do. But the other guys, they look out just the opposite for the free to play.
All right, fantastic. So following on from that, because you mentioned like public perceptions not necessarily reflecting the accuracy of things, what would you guys say is the number one misconception of this council that you want to clear up? And that's a question from Snowy Minerva.
I think one of the things you probably heard throughout is we wanted to, part of the whole reason we're doing this, the whole reason we're here is we want to show that there is more than just the top end that is being cared for. We want to have players of all shapes and sizes have a voice, both individually on this council, but also to be able to magnify that voice and give that back to Scopely. I mean, that's part of the reason why, I'm unmasking or whatever here. Part of the reason we're here is just we want to just try to reassure folks because again, we've gone down this road with Scopely before, and this feels different. There's so much more engagement and willingness to engage on their side than has been under past regimes, and it's a valid question to say, okay, are we just advocating for the top? We're doing our darndest to try to make sure that we hear all these various points of view and to respect them and to really just make sure this game is healthy when all the different player types are in balance. If everyone's feeling satisfied, that's going to impact Scopely's bottom line in the most positive way. That's going to impact our lives, just being able to enjoy the time we spend on this game. And that's the dream. That's what we hope. So I hope that tonight and just this conversation has just shown that there's a lot of us out there, and we are trying to do our best to um, represent the players like us, and even in our own limited way, advocate for players who are in very different places than us. And we want a good experience for everyone.
All right, thanks. I'm going to throw you a slight curveball because really that question was answered throughout this entire stream. So I'm going to ask you, what would you say is the number 2 misconception then that you'd want to clear up?
I would have to say that it is. So we have the makeup of the council as well. I'll also say how it's being run organizationally. That it's again, if you're saying this is all made up, one thing I hear is if it's made up of all the top spenders, the Krakens. The other is that's like it's being driven by them as well. Um,
And also, to a certain extent, if I can add anything,
Yeah.
is that it is all friends of the people who started the movement, right? It's just kind of like some sort of like inner club, right? And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I have no idea who these people were before joining. It's just a huge player base, and it truly felt like a random selection, if you will, an actual vote, because you fill out the app, and then I expected nothing from it other than it was just like a nice exercise to do, just kind of like furiously typing away. And then next thing you know, it's like, hey, you're going to be up there and people are going to be voting for you. So if it was some sort of like underhanded deal, then I certainly missed out on that part.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys, and thank you for your time tonight.
We'll be back next week for the next show, and we'll start this series, as Evdog said at the top, that we're going to start including more one-on-one personal interviews with the Players Council as they step forward, and a lot of big teasers to come, and more information to come our direction that I think will get everybody excited. And make sure you guys check out the YouTube channel, as as some of the past streams are going to be posted up there for you to watch as well. But once again, special thank you to Shusky, Free to Play Jay, Mr. Minnow, Beta, and Evdog, of course.
That's right. And also, again, just one last point to say it. If you aren't already, please do join the MSFPV Discord. As you can see, your questions will be going straight to the council, as you saw tonight. And it's a great way to get involved in the discussions, the suggestions, and generally, it's just a great place to be. All right. So until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon.